Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Whenever you find it most convenient, whether it's in the evening, morning, night, to listen to the Bonfire. I, as always, am Alan, the pole with the goal, joined by my lovely Jiggly co-hosts. Co-hosts or co-hosts? Either is okay. DJ?
Did you just call me a ho-oh?
No idea. As well as Tim.
So when you say the pole with a goal, can you explain what a goal is?
I'm a Fire fan. I don't know what that is.
To be fair, he's also a Blackhawks fan, so he doesn't really know what goals are anymore.
Oh, it's ironic since the last Blackhawks game there was 7 goals for the Hawks. So, I'm also joined by a very special guest. You can hear them on Sad Boys. You can also read some of their articles at meninred97.com, and that is Jiggly.
Hi. I don't have much to say anymore. I'm just kind of here now.
I know. Your most recent article very much puts the way how I am feeling when it comes to this club. I don't know.
I would like to point out that Men in Red's autism has doubled now. As both of us are in the same podcast, our autism is unstoppable.
This is fantastic news. All right.
This is our autism awareness episode.
No, it's autism acceptance.
No, we're just making you aware of it. We're not advancing it in any way. We're not making people better able to relate to people with autism or understand autism. We're just making you aware of it, like it's there, you know.
All my homies hate Autism Speaks.
Yeah,
as they well should. That organization is.
Yeah, no. All right. Well, let's get on with some news real quick. So, the Fire, as of today, when we're recording this, so a few days ago, since when this episode comes out, have announced 2 games will be moved to Seat Geek on top of the Leagues Cup games that will be played in August, and that are the games on September 7th against DC United and September 28th against Toronto. This, of course, all comes because of Da Bears and the NFL schedule being released these last few days. So since the Bears have priority over Soldier Field, they can just put their home games pretty much whenever they want to, or whenever the NFL wants it to, or at least in some shape or form, so it's not that every day the Fire have to move back to Seat Geek.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. They dodged a bullet last year, although Leagues Cup and U.S. Open Cup games were still at Seat Geek. But it looks like they're not going to be able to do that every year.
Yeah.
It's kind of unfortunate. It is what it is.
Usually it's always been max 2 games. I think the first season, when they allowed fans back at Soldier Field, there were also 2 games played at Seat Geek for the regular MLS season.
I know that one because I remember that there was one that I got incredibly drunk at.
I wonder if it was the Miami one.
That was the NYCFC game.
Oh, that was the one
I remember because the Fire won, and I heard a Barrage goal, and I thought it was hallucinating. The first one,
yes, because the second time we played them, yes, you're completely right. We did win 2. We won 2-0 with that game, right? I can't remember.
Yes, there were 2 goals.
Yes, the second time we played them, which was also at Seat. The second time we played them in MLS, that was also in Seat Geek. That was a 0-2 loss. And I remember we also played Miami there at one point.
It's unfortunate, especially because, you know, for fans that are transit dependent, there's not really an easy way to get there. And the other thing is that season ticket holders or others that bought tickets from the team, your tickets are sort of like held up between now and June, so you can't transfer them to alternate matches, which season ticket holders could do, which is just unfortunate because there's a limited number of of home matches that are happening between June 21st, when they say they'll be available, and the end of the season. So for fans that really can't make it out to Seat Geek or don't want to, it's kind of a pain.
Yeah, it really is. And well, I mean, I don't know what I'm going to be doing in September by the time those games come around, so maybe it'll be okay for me to get there. Yeah, so
maybe I'll have a job on the moon.
I would love to have a job on the moon. Honestly, if I could be anywhere right now,
what would you do?
It is the moon.
Why would they need music teachers on the moon?
No, he'd be a whaler.
Exactly. We whalers,
obviously.
We carry our harpoons but there ain't no whales, so we tell tall tales and we sing our whaling tunes. All right.
Yeah, you can't have whaling without whaling tunes, and obviously that's going to be the first lunar industry.
It's so funny because yesterday, or no, it wasn't yesterday. Everything's a blur. A few days ago when I was visiting my girlfriend, she was just sleeping, and I was like, I'm going to read a book if that's okay. And she's like, okay. And I just see chapter 1, Call Me Ishmael, or chapter 1, Loomings, Call Me Ishmael. And I read the entirety of chapter 1 of Moby Dick, and she was like, why? Out loud as well. So, all right. Recently, MLS has also posted and shared out the new Pride kits. They do not look like Pride kits.
I'm not a fan.
No. At first, when I shared the pictures with Men in Red, some of us were like, they look cool. They don't look like Pride kits. And honestly, now that I look at it, I don't even think it looks as that cool anymore. It kind of looks like something out of Star Wars, like the characters that they use for both on the front that says Love Unites and on the back of the nape. It looks like the language from Star Wars.
And the kit itself looks like for those of you that haven't seen it, you can find it on the MLS website or Twitter or other places. It looks like an oil spill when you're trying to capture the sheen on an oil spill.
It looks like it's a Salute the Troops kit, not a Pride kit.
Yeah, it looks like a metallic camo where, like, if you put, like, just like Ted Tim said, if you position it right, the sheen gives a kind of, like, I guess, glow. But yeah, no, I don't see exactly how this is a Pride kit. Like,
it's the color of the straight Pride flag.
That was that
straight
was
up
the thing. That was the thing that when you sent that, I was like, oh no. Like,
there is a very minimal amount of color in it just to defend it a little bit, but it's primarily white to gray to black, and that's like, if you had to describe it as a color, you would say white, and if you said another color, it would be like white and gray.
Yeah, and then a burnt yellow.
Yeah, last year's Pride kits were white, but they had color on them, like the shoulders and the sleeves had like splotches of different colors, as well as in the very front, the Love Unite was in like rainbow coloring.
Multiple colors,
that when you look at it, it's like, okay, that's a Pride kit, even though it was still mostly white. This one, even with the font, it's just hard to tell. So
the other thing is the one positive that I'm taking from this, though, is that in 2023, after what happened with Bud Light, they were just so paranoid about companies being associated with Pride at all that they removed all sponsors from the Pride tops. This year, they've returned. They're on the back, at least. So at least they're not like exhibiting the greatest degree of corporate cowardice like imaginable with this.
Yeah. So yeah, it's just not a Pride kit. It's a kit that, as we mentioned,
well, it's a warm-up top. So luckily, no soccer will have to be observed with people wearing these.
That's true, but still,
point taken.
It looks like an LAFC kit.
Oh God, you're right, because it's like it has like black, it has like sort of gold lettering and the black back. Oh wow, yeah, it does look more like an LAFC kit.
Man, there's nothing better on an audio format than describing the way that something looks for about 5 minutes, by the way.
Well, I mean, in today's society, people can, check on their phone, or unless you're commuting, then wait until when you're not driving. Then you can check it, what we're talking about, if you haven't seen it.
Or if you're operating heavy machinery, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Please just
do not let the intrusive thoughts win in this battle.
That is true. Do not let them win. We have a coach firing in MLS. Gary Smith at Nashville, the one and only head coach in the team's 4-season history in MLS, has been released. They're currently 10th in the Eastern Conference. They are outside of a playoff and play-in spot. So
just due to tiebreakers, they're equal on points to the 9th place team,
which is Philadelphia.
Yep. So
this has been a weird year.
It definitely has been a weird year, because normally Nashville has just been a team that you always see pretty much in that sort of playoff position. Now all of a sudden it's like, oh, they're not doing as well as they normally have been for the past few seasons. So
I think we can all definitively say that it was Dax McCarty propping that team up at this point.
Yep.
yeah. So, oops. So of course, especially this, I guess, will prompt further the conversation of, this head coach was fired and let go of. Is the same going to happen here in Chicago?
Well, he's doing a whole lot better than Klopas.
And that says a lot about expectations, right? Like, I think the expectations in Nashville, and I don't think this is necessarily rational because of the roster build, but that they were going to try to take the next step because they've consistently been a team that made it in the playoffs, but they weren't really a team that you thought was going to win anything. Like, they came close-ish to winning the League's Cup last year, losing out to Nashville or losing out to Inter Miami in the final, but like they never really seemed like a real competitor, and they never really felt like they were going to like walk away with anything. Well, they also played like a very kind of boring, like fast counterattacking, like not really fun to watch brand of soccer. So I think that also kind of hurt Smith here.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, just so much is happening around the league where other teams, if they were in our position, would have definitely let go of a head coach. So,
yeah, and we'll talk about that, I guess, when we talk about the match and the consequences, I guess, of the match.
Yeah, we'll get there.
Consequences.
We'll get
that will come up.
Yeah, I love that term for us. All right, and then one last little tiny itty bitty part of the news section. This more surrounds the Premier League. A few days ago, John Duran, who now plays for Aston Villa, scored a brace after being subbed on in the 79th minute for Aston Villa. They were trailing 3-1. So thanks to his brace, 3-3, they qualified for Champions League. So yeah, and Tim has just sent over us a quote. He said that
it's a joke. That's a joke.
It is a joke. It says, "I came to grow the game in England." John Duran on signing with Aston Villa. So that's a funny piece of misinformation that Tim is spreading.
I mean, I love spreading misinformation. It's the best thing. It's so much fun.
It is. It is a lot of fun. And I guess, I mean, it's also fun just to see the continuation of, Premier League or MLS youngsters in Europe, and in this case, the Premier League. Even though I think John Duran's time at the Fire has been sort of okay, I guess.
I don't think he unpacked his bags. Well,
yeah, that's sort of the consensus we have, that he was here. Even though his Instagram doesn't show it.
He's the first person in history that showed up at Soldier Field instead of O'Hare for a layover.
That's funny. All right, and then the other little piece of Premier League news that I personally wanted to discuss ever so slightly is that the Premier League clubs will be voting on whether they want to get rid of VAR, the video assisted referee. And, this is a big discussion point, I think, in leagues all around, not only with refereeing, but also with VAR, whether that is actually helping as it was supposed to over the past few years when it was first introduced. There's been instances of, offside calls or whatnot that could have been overturned or shouldn't have been overturned, where, when you watch the replay, it's like, wait, something's not right, but the video assistant referee doesn't catch that. And we've had instances of those in MLS as well. So if the Prem does follow through and gets rid of VAR, do you think MLS should or could do the same?
I think it's also worth noting VAR in MLS has been a lot better than VAR in England. That is,
it's gotten better in the UK. It's gotten better in the UK. So they, according to like analysis they do after the matches, the number of correct VAR decisions has gone from 82% in the first year when it was introduced in the 2019-2020 season up to 96% this year. So it's gotten better. So any member club can put something to a vote. It takes a 2/3 majority for that decision to be approved. And it seems incredibly unlikely that this will be approved. Now, I mean, I'm sympathetic to the argument that like it changes the game, because if a goal goes in, you don't really want to celebrate the same way, because you're like, well, is it going to count? And it's very weird that the cue for celebration is like something the ref does rather than something the players do.
Yeah.
But that just sort of seems minor. And I think that most of us have sort of like learned to do the mental adjustment. And like those of us that, like watch hockey or other like North American sports are used to that anyways.
I was about to mention Austin Matthews' goal celebration. Need to call Toronto first.
That's funny. I apologize. All right. I think it's time to talk about the game. Right?
Unfortunately.
Yes. So
if we're that game is such a strong word.
The event
that has transpired in the past, I don't know how long ago it was, not even 24 hours. So
no, not then we're recording. Yeah. So it's fresh for us, less fresh for you when you're listening to this, thankfully, maybe.
So in that game where a lot of us described it as, or you described it, Tim, as like, if they don't win, then the hole they are dug into is now a hole at the edge of a cliff.
Yeah, that was the 2 matches this week. So that's after this match and the Columbus match, but this was by far, I think, the easier match for the Fire to win.
That's true, and we just haven't managed to actually do that.
Well, yeah, so an important prerequisite, I think before we just get into this too much, an important prerequisite of winning games is scoring goals. And I don't think you mentioned the score. The Fire ended up losing 1-0 to Charlotte.
1-0. So that means they've scored 1 goal in how many matches?
The past 6. And no goals at home
6.
in the past 4.
And they were not at home. And so we were talking about this, because we had this conversation of goal songs at the beginning of the season, because they once again changed the goal song. It's no longer Ring of Fire. It's now, I'm actually looking this up because I can't remember. What is it called? Fuego? Timmy Trumpet? Something like that? I don't know. I know I've mentioned in that when I watch it on the broadcast, it was hard to hear what it is, that you had to like listen to the thumping bass line to tell that it was that song. So yeah, I haven't heard it in a while. The only time those little fiery columns go off are at the beginning at matches. I think they also go off at halftime. No idea. Can't remember.
No.
Too tired. No?
Not at halftime.
So at the very beginning of the game. Yeah.
Yeah. It's been depressing. I guess also give credit to the goal scorer, Ashley Westwood, in the 60th minute.
Yeah. Oh my days.
Just,
You'd think the Fire would be able to do something like that, considering we had a new set piece coach in the beginning of the season, if I remember correctly.
Yes.
So, and I know someone, I guess, I feel like we can just go straight to the Westwood goal, because I don't really know of anything else that really happened before that.
I can't even remember the goal.
No, so what? And yeah, so to refresh for Jiggly as well as for everyone, 60th minute, literally right in the middle of like in the little out. I forgot what that thing is called. Like the little
half circle.
The half circle outside the penalty area is where Westwood was propped up. There was a wall literally around the penalty spot. 1 step, 1 kick. It looked like the part of the wall where the ball was didn't even jump. They just looked. Chris Brady dove. It was out of his reach, and it reached the middle right corner of the net to make it 1-0 Charlotte. So, I mean, if people score a goal against us, it's good goals. So.
Oh, yes. I do remember that. That was, Tehran gave that up as well. And it was something that I'd mentioned at that specific moment, actually. I was going to say it into a group chat that, like, yeah, we keep giving them like perfect position on free kicks. Like if you ask a free kick specialist, like, hey, put down the ball wherever you want, and that's where you're going to kick it. That's about where they put it.
Yeah. And
100%.
And I feel like that's the exact same position in which the Revolution scored their 1 goal against us as well recently, just from right outside the box, and Brady wasn't able to do anything. And like mentioned, when they show on the replay the slow motion, the one and only person in the wall that actually moves was Andrew Gutman, who was on the opposite side of where the ball was. I'm pretty sure who was in the wall, if I'm looking correctly. That's Hugo. I think Fabian Herbers is there, Tehran. So they didn't even jump. And maybe if they jumped, the ball would have hit their head. I guess they just didn't want to break their heads or something like that. I don't know.
No, that ball was not going fast enough to injure them. That ball was not going fast enough, unless it hit them square on the nose.
It was kind of a lob shot.
Still, there would have been a greater chance of the ball like just pinging off their heads, their faces, and above the crossbar. But oh well.
And Frank Klopas was asked about whether or not the players not jumping was part of the plan for the set piece or not, and he said that normally you try to make yourself as big as possible and jump. We don't tell the players not to jump.
Yeah. It's Suke. It wasn't Fabian. I apologize, Herbert. So it was. Now I'm seeing from inside goal. The goal. It was from left to right. Kuipers, Suke, Chihos, and Tehran that didn't jump.
Yeah, Arnaud and Suke didn't jump. So and again, Klopas was asked about that at the post match press conference, and he said that wasn't the part of the plan.
Up. I sure can't think of why they wouldn't want to go through with the plan.
Well, and this comes to, I don't know. Is there anything else that we really want to talk about, like in terms of like run of play during the game?
Not the only other good thing that happened during the game for the Fire was they got fives. They forced the other keeper to make 5 saves. And Tehran did have a good shot. That's it.
And for the reported 12,000 people in attendance, and by the way, 12,800 and change, which if there were 12,800 people in that building, then I am 12 feet tall.
Yeah, it does not look like that from the perspective of the TV.
If I was unable to convince anyone to give me a ride to that game, out of the people who regularly go to games, I don't know how they got random people to show up.
Yeah, no, somehow the tailgate beforehand, which I was able to go to for the first time in a while, I was walking through and it just like, it almost felt illicit. Like when you think about a tailgate, it's kind of ridiculous. It's like you're drinking in public and like you drive to a place to like consume alcohol and like get out grills and stuff like that. Like it seems like the kind of thing that wouldn't be allowed, but it's one of those things where it's like, well, there's a bunch of people doing it and so it makes it feel okay. There weren't enough people really doing it to make it feel okay, this match. Like it was like there just wasn't enough of a tail. It just felt like people like drinking in the like parking lot of like Walmart or something. And like that would just feel wrong. So
well, that just feels like a normal day in the Midwest.
All right.
Except at Myers.
Or Myers, that's true. But yeah.
The other thing that happened was those 12,800 people that were theoretically in attendance get a free hot dog from Portillo's because the Fire had 5 corners. They did finish the Frank.
Finished the Frank.
They finally finished the Frank.
Did they finish the right Frank is the question.
I was about to say they need to make sure a different Frank is finished.
Yeah, at this point, because to combine sort of 2 points that were made, because I know, Tim, you sort of were saying that this problem doesn't just lie in the head coach being Frank Klopas, but at the same time, sort of what DJ was saying, at this point, Frank needs to save face, because for a lot of us, like diehard and older fans that know him from both as a player and from when he first became a club ambassador, he's done a lot. But especially for newer fans that know him just as like interim head coach and now a permanent head coach, it's like it's just
multiple time interim.
Multiple time interim, whether it's for Wiki or for Ezra or for himself, I guess.
Yeah. I think it's unfortunate. Number one, I think when the tone in the post-match press conference from Frank was different. He's just he was, in between, times when he was coaching, he was a color commentator for the Fire. Like he knows he just is very good with the media, and he's very good about talking about the game in a way that feels not like unpassionate, like he doesn't care, but dispassionate. Like he's a professional, is what I'm trying to say with it. It didn't feel the same after this. There was just clear and palpable emotion coming from him. It was frankly like rough. You know, I wasn't even in the room. I was just joining via Zoom, and it was just it was one of those things where you just, you know, as a human being, you just can't help but feel compassion for someone that is feeling that way. And he wasn't defensive. He didn't try to say things should have happened that didn't. But it was also clear that he didn't have answers. Like legitimately, you know, I'm trying to find the exact quote right now.
We've tried everything. I remember he said, we've tried everything. We've changed our tactics and nothing's working.
Yeah, basically his thing was like, my job is like, I'm going to try to figure something out. And I don't know, like it made it clear like he doesn't know what that something is.
I mean, the line that stuck out to me was, "I wouldn't have done this for any other team." It's very specific.
I said this on Twitter and I stand by it. Klopas did not want to return. And now he's basically at that point where he doesn't know what he's going to do. And don't get me wrong, I like Klopas. Everyone here, we all love Klopas. We know Klopas
As a
is
person,
a club
yeah.
legend. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But he knows it. We all know it. He needs to leave. And the problem is he knows he can't. Because what's going to happen? Who wants to take over the club, not only with him, but with Heights? But with Mansueto, nobody really knows what's going to happen with this club. So it's like, who wants to come here and coach this club for like 10 minutes, and maybe you get to keep your job, depending on what Heights happens with.
Yeah, and it's like what you said in your article, essentially. I don't know. Like, what can be done, what should be done at this point, and we're all, especially at this point, like, we're not even halfway through the season yet, and this ship just feels like it keeps drifting back into the Bermuda Triangle.
You know, I didn't really expect him to actually say, "I don't know," essentially. Because I know I've said that a couple of times, that like I want him to walk out in there and say like, "I don't know how it hasn't gotten any better," and that's kind of what he did. It's him saying, "Well, we gotta go back to the drawing board, I guess. You know, we gotta do this." Like, it sounds like somebody's saying, "I don't know," and I don't know what to do about not knowing.
No, I also don't know. I'm just a music guy who enjoys soccer.
And I think it's clear that everyone's frustrated. Like there was that photo a few matches back of players on the bench that looked like
after the Revolution game, yes. And then there was the game after that where it showed the frustrated coaches. And
Paulo Nagamura, the assistant coach that was just brought in this season, so doesn't have a long history with the team, just frustrated with the team's performance, I think, more than anything else. By the way, just to clear something up, because somebody said, "Oh, that's how they got the yellow card." That was, in a different half and a long time before the yellow card happened.
Yeah, and you just Jiggly just shared the image with us right now. You could see he's just yelling. He's like, it looks like it just looks like us, like when we're sitting and watching this game, just slamming our heads or slamming our arms and everything like that. That's probably how I used to watch the Fire at home whenever something would go wrong. Now it's just like, okay.
Same shit, different day.
Yeah. So because of all this, the Fire still remain in 14th with just 10 points, and in this sort of extended homestand with some away games in between with St. Louis and then upcoming DC, we only have 1 point out of a possible 12. So, yeah, we have 2 wins, 7 losses, 4 draws, negative 11 goal differential.
So I guess one question before I move on to the Columbus discussion is whether or not we think, or like what we think the team should do, or like what the next steps are, if we think that Frank Klopas will still be the head coach of the team. when we record a podcast next.
At this point, if you keep Globus on, you need to tell Globus just do anything. Just if you need to throw out Hugo Kuipers, Georgios Koutsias, and Tom Barlow at the same time, just do it. At this point, you're throwing stuff at the wall and hoping it sticks, and maybe something will. That's all you can really do now.
I don't think that works even. I mean,
no, it doesn't.
You mentioned Kuipers, Koutsias, and Barlow. Barlow and Koutsias are guys who run around. They don't score. They just sort of run around really hard. And then you get Kuipers, and Kuipers needs service. Who do we have out there who's actually going to be passing him the ball? We have nothing. We have put together we've put together a team that is built to suck, with pieces that are good, but built to suck.
Yeah, I think that it is. There are real questions about. I mean, I think it's fairly clear that like Xherdan Shaqiri, who never played really as a number 10, shouldn't have been played as a number 10, which the team couldn't help but do for the past 2.5 seasons. And I think that the hope was that Brian Gutierrez would grow into that role because he's not naturally a goal scorer, but he's more of a connector. But, it seems like he's maybe, if not taken a step back, at least stalled, but maybe taken a step back.
I think part of that too is just the only player on this team right now that you can say is playing better than they were last year, it's Brady. And that's because Brady he's being forced to play that well. You're forcing him because nobody else is doing anything as well. Like Aragones started great, but now he's starting to teeter out. Chihos is...
Well, I mean, Aragone's injured.
Well, no, I meant before then even. Like Acosta did the same thing. The only other player you could add that to is Gutman. Gutman has played really well, which you would hope so. This is what he was running for, but I mean, at this point, there's no one on the team.
And Kuipers, I think, has performed, given the service he's gotten, I think he's performed as well as you could expect him to perform.
Kuipers is playing like Nemanja Nikolic did a few years ago, where they didn't give him the service they needed. The only people providing service were Diego Campos and Alexander Katai. And, that wasn't enough. You needed David Akam. You needed, ironically, 2017 Lucho and Alvarez. Those two guys combined. That was great. And then they took everything away. And this is the problem. They don't have that back. They don't have a David Akam. They have Shaq.
Or, I mean, just good passing in the midfield as well. I mean, I think the thing that we're all avoiding is that we really don't have a midfield at all.
Which is ironically bad because Colin Costa is right there. He should be the big guy, and it's not.
Well, I mean, you can't exactly have just one dude in the midfield that everything works around. Like, you have to have two guys that are able to pass the ball with each other in the midfield.
And that's been part of the issue. And I think that becomes the challenge for whatever the plan is for the Fire in terms of like a head coach. Like, I think that we're all agreed that like it's not just, this isn't on Frank. Like, he may not be part of the solution, but he's not the origin of the problem. But right now there are problems both in the coaching, in the front office, and in the roster build. And the sequencing of things is difficult to get correct, and it has to be done in the correct order, because if not, you have players like, you can't just get rid of your MLS roster and get a new one next year. Like, that's basically impossible. So there are players that are going to have to stick around next year and the season after that and the season after that even, and you have to make them feel like that they're part of something and believe in something and know that what the plan is, and keep their performance up. At the same time, you also have to make, changes to the roster, and you have to make changes to the coaching staff, and the question is, do you try to fit the players you've got? And then going up to heights, it's a question of, when do you replace him? The summer transfer window potentially could be huge for the Fire. I mean, the
Really?
Fire could potentially be shopping. They could be shopping for 2 DPs this summer.
They have to get rid of something though.
Well,
They would. So
they could be shopping for 2 DPs, but how much is new players going to help a team that is not being put out there to play even the way that they have right now?
Well, that's my point, is that if the last thing that you want in the world, if you think that Heights isn't the guy, is to give Heights permission to sign 2 new DPs, and you sign 2 new DPs, and then you lock them in together for 3 or 4 years, and then it turns out the squad isn't better, but now you've got 3 DPs, including Kuipers, that are sticking around for the next 3 seasons, and you've got very limited roster flexibility. If you were hiring someone to come in as the sporting director, chief stalker officer, whatever you want to call them, you would want to give them as much roster flexibility as possible because that makes the job more attractive to them. The challenge becomes if you don't make those changes, like the summer window is when big changes happen from teams that are really working the global transfer market. That's not when Heights has traditionally made moves. And so the question becomes, how do you transition and how do you communicate to a locker room full of people if the change isn't going to be coming this summer that this is going to suck, but it's eventually not going to suck, but here's why you should stick with us. That's a difficult conversation to have.
It is worth noting there are going to be 11 players, possibly up to 11 players leaving the Fire next year, just on options and contract alone.
I think that I mean, this is kind of a part of the big reason why I even came on this episode this week, is because I actually saw someone else from Joe from Hot Takes, also with Men in Red, basically said, I think Jiggly might be right, because near the beginning of the season, after that Revs game on the road, I said the season is effectively over. If they could not win that game, the season was effectively over. And we have not improved since then. And there's been no change since then. And I think that's kind of the problem going into this where we are right now. We're walking into the summer transfer window, and we can say a lot of things about what we want and what we think is going to happen, or what we think needs to happen, because we know all of the things that need to happen. But do we actually trust anything to be done?
I don't trust myself for anything to be done.
And if the answer is no, then it's like this, darned if you do, darned if you don't situation where movement is both part of the problem and part of the solution, where if the Fire went and signed 2 high-end DPs in this transfer window that's coming up in July, which is probably too late to really make a significant impact in the Fire season because there's 10 regular season games at that point. I mean, would we think, oh man, that's gonna solve it? Because I think that we've seen that enough times where it's Shaqiri's a big name, he's going to solve it. Like the leading striker from Belgium, one of the top leagues outside of the top 5 in Europe. Like the kind of Golden Boot winner from Belgium seems like the kind of guy that would be picked up by a team that's, in the Champions League the next year, right? Like that just seems like that's the profile of the player that the Fire got. And the Fire's scoring has gone down over the previous season. It's not Kuiper's fault, but you go and get a goal scorer and you score fewer goals. That shows this sort of depth of the problem here.
It's to the point where I'm almost thinking maybe it might be the smarter decision, just forfeit. Because at this point, what are you playing for? Who here is going to still be here when we actually win? When we win a championship, who on this current team will be on that team? As starting 11, who will be there?
Silence fills the air.
And that's
the only one that
I don't think
the only one I can think of is Kuipers, and that's if they turn it around.
And that's if they turn it around a lot of players, quickly.
There's a lot of players that are on the roster that I think would belong on an MLS playoff competing for championships roster, right? Because it's not just about who the player is, but it's about how much, if you've got a guy that's a DP that is performing like a mid-level player, you're not going to have a championship roster because you're overpaying the player, right? So there's players that are good, but just are not good for what salary cap space they take out, because that means it's a zero-sum game ultimately on an MLS roster. Every time you spend money somewhere, it means you can't spend money somewhere else. I think that Brady is is a perfectly good. Exactly, that's an example of the player that has to go. I think that Brady is a perfectly good goalkeeper. I think there's a reasonable chance he will be playing in Europe before the Fire would be at a championship level.
So he wouldn't be on a team.
But I mean, he's. There's no reason to get rid of. Like, you don't need to upgrade there. And
well, what I'm saying with it is that if the goal of a sports team is to win a championship, and we are not trying to win a championship, we are trying to survive, and that is a problem in a league without relegation. We are trying to survive.
Yeah, no. The answer, the quote every year has been that the goal is to make the playoffs, and it's like when you consistently have the same goal, which should be like, I get that there's times that you're in a rebuilding mode, and so you have to start somewhere, and so it's make the playoffs, compete in the playoffs, win a championship. Like that's like a 3-year cycle that I think people can wrap their heads around. But when the goal still is stuck at step 1, and it's been,
it's been at step
4
1
bites of the apple.
It's been at step 1 for about 15 years.
Right. I'm not really sure that we're saying anything that's that new or that remarkable right now.
True.
Except saying to forfeit, but I mean, that's just me.
Would be, but like, what about those of us that just love paying $8 for hot dogs?
Portillo's.
Who doesn't want a $13 anemic slice of pizza?
Oh my days! I don't know. Thinking of all this food just makes me nut. Okay. Well, I feel like it's time to now talk about the game that is upcoming in a few days, and that is the Columbus Crew at the Fire. They have a record of 4 wins, 2 losses, 6 draws, 18 points. They're just 7th in the Eastern Conference. They've had a decent form as of late. 3 wins, 1 draw, 1 loss. Their last,
although most of those wins are not in league play, it's worth saying.
Oh, that is true. Okay.
They have not won
against,
in league play since before the last time the Fire have won, actually.
They won the game after they played the Fire, and then they were unable to win until Wednesday.
Interesting. Very interesting. But
however, they're also in a CONCACAF Champions Cup final on June 1st. So like that's what's been occupying their attention, as like it well should, because I think that I can't speak for everyone else here. I think that they're in really good position to be the second MLS team to win the competition in its current format after the Seattle Sounders.
Yeah. So still, their most recent game was at Montreal, where they ended up winning 3-2-1. So they still have a win in MLS, as well as on the road. So now they're coming to Soldier Field to possibly do that again.
Yeah, they're on a 5-game road trip for the league, 6 games overall, because the CONCACAF Champions Cup final is being played away for them because of the results that happened in the group stage in ways that are complicated to get into. So kicked off the road trip on the right foot. They lost to FC Cincinnati at home for the first time in their history the week before, or on Saturday, I should say. But they look good based on... I wasn't able to do a complete watch of the Montreal-Columbus game yet, but they looked like the Columbus Crew team that we've come to expect under Wilfried Nancy. Like, they dominated possession. They were able to score goals without really, it seems like, too much trouble. They look like the team that won MLS Cup last year.
Yep. And I'm guessing the only reason why they're just 7th in these is sort of like how we mentioned, just how stacked the Eastern Conference is. Plus, of course, they have the Champions Cup on their schedule. So
exactly, their their mind has been elsewhere. Like, they've been focusing on the competition that is harder to win and not MLS. Like, they don't really seem like the kind of team that would be built to win the Supporters Shield. They seem like the kind of team that would be built to win, MLS Cup or something like that. And it seems like that's what they're going for, along with CONCACAF Champions Cup.
Yeah. Any other point of interest in terms of the Crew?
It's obviously the second match of the season between the two teams. Chicago has played the Crew closely. Despite the overall results difference between the two teams over the past few seasons, I think the game in Columbus was a game that the Fire could have had, if not a win, at least a result in. It was Mo Farsi's goal in the 10th minute of second half stoppage time that got the win for the Crew. So I'm not entirely sure what it is about the fact that the Fire have been close but not quite able to get results against the Crew. Now, the other side of it is like the Crew, like they win 2-1 against the Fire all the time. But it hasn't been as much of a blowout as you would think, given that we're talking about a team that's won 2 MLS Cups in the past 4 seasons versus a team that hasn't made the playoffs since 2017.
Yeah. But the only thing is that, they win 2-1, but it's always by 1 goal, but it's always in some, I guess, stupid fashion, whether it's a last minute goal or it's from the halfway line or something like that. I don't know. It's always stupid.
Yeah. A Fire win against Columbus would put them on a points per game basis, more or less where they were a few days ago before the loss to Charlotte. So that it's again like a difficult mountain to climb, but they would basically need to be a top team in MLS from here out if they wanted a shot at the postseason. If they lose, they have to be like a top 2 team in MLS on like an average basis for the rest of the season to make the postseason.
And that's sort of we've been discussing. That's not really the case. So
right.
Sorry to be a Debbie Downer, I guess.
No, I mean,
that's why you guys brought me on this episode.
This whole episode's just been a downer episode, let's be honest.
It's been emotionally difficult. And I mean, like the one nice thing that I will say is that if the biggest problem you've got in your life is like a bunch of people that kick a ball around professionally can't get the ball where you want it to be kicked in the course of 90 minutes, like if that's your biggest problem, frankly, you don't really have big problems. So that's the one positive to it. Like there's a lot of other things going on in life and, I
just need the one thing to work, please. Just one thing to go right.
That's true. In the past, no joke week, there have been so many other things that have made me all mad or just more mad than the Fire's result. And that's all surrounding a very similar topic of the current situation going on in the Middle East. So, yeah.
Similar.
Last week
we don't need to get into it. But
no.
I
thought it was weird that you said similar.
Well, because all of everything that's going on is revolving around that.
Everyone knows what needs to be done.
Died. No one involved in a Fire game has died.
No.
We know the things that need to be done and people don't do it.
Mm-hmm.
Something we found out today, it was Edward Lowen, the St. Louis midfielder, who's been a key part of their team, missed a bunch of games and looks like he's set to return, but we found out part of why he's missed some of the time, and that's that his wife had a cancer diagnosis. And that just like serves as a reminder that, there are a lot more important things in the game out there. It seems like his wife is doing well, according to what he said. And we hope she continues to do so, but like it just serves as a reminder that like this game, it should be fun. You don't always get the results that you want, but it should be a fun distraction, and there's always bigger things going on in life.
Yeah. I guess.
I don't know. Whenever somebody starts bringing up, you should have other things to deal with outside of sports, you kind of realize that maybe the sports is just really that bad.
Well, the other side of it is ideally, like sports really can be. I mean, at least it was for me at a number of times in my life that were difficult. It can be I don't want to say a distraction necessarily, but in a universe where you can control so little, it's this discrete thing that takes a certain amount of time and can make you happy, you know, like.
And that's what makes it
when-
frustrating when it doesn't.
Yeah, exactly. You know, and it's something that, you know, I mean, yeah, it is frustrating. But for what it's worth, I mean, I think that there are still things that are enjoyable about the game if you let them be, regardless of the results. And it's unfortunate, like that's what we're talking about because, you know, that's where we are, but that's sort of where we are. I mean, the crew play an attractive brand of soccer that's fun to watch. I'm going to be watching the game. I want the Fire to win on Saturday. And I hope they do. If they don't, I still am going to be watching the game.
I'll still
And
be watching it.
There's
I'll be
enjoyable
going there
things
as well.
about there's enjoyable things about watching a game of soccer. Like it's called a beautiful game for a reason.
Yeah. And there's just enjoyable things about just being with friends and people that sort of make things seem a little less bleak.
Exactly.
Saturday's my birthday too.
Wow. We have a bunch of May birthdays right now. And amongst our fire friends, so wow.
And then Jonathan Dean too.
Yeah.
Happy birthday, Jonathan Dean.
I believe it was just another Fire player's birthday today. I'm blanking on who.
Or hell.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, Sergio Orhel Jr.
Sergio.
Yeah.
So happy birthday.
Happy birthday
as
to
well.
them and to Jiggly. And if it's your birthday and you're listening to this, happy birthday to you too.
Yes. Why don't you go get yourself a milkshake? You deserve it. Unless you don't like milkshakes, then I don't know.
I don't know. Are you gonna pay for it?
Tacos are good.
Are you gonna pay for it?
No, I'm just no. I'm just telling them go get a milkshake because that's what I always do for my birthday, or a malt. I love going to Culver's, getting myself a malt.
How are you both
Pretzel
in
bites.
your early 20s and also 7 million years old?
I just enjoy a plain vanilla malt. All right.
I like
On the
concrete
night that you
mixers.
can't get a good sarsaparilla or...
Gosh,
I like
darn it.
concrete mixers.
Tim, you have to allow it. He's just that type of white.
All right.
boy.
Score predictions. Our favorite part. Who wants to start us off?
Blueberry.
I'm saying
Mhm.
3-0 Columbus. It pains me to say it. Although I'm taking the over on that for Columbus, I think and I hope that it will be closer, but I typically overestimate the Fire, and now I would like to underestimate them.
It's either going to be a very, very, very close 1-0, or they're going to get destroyed like 5-0. There's no in
Yeah.
between.
I agree with DJ. I think it's either it's gonna be close or gone. So I'm gonna find a in between. I'm just gonna say it's gonna be 2-0 Columbus.
I also said 3-0. I think I appreciate how I didn't even, I waited until somebody said that the Fire were going to score a goal and I was going to bring that up, but I see none of us are predicting a goal for the Fire, and that's pretty much spot on. It's 3-0 Columbus, which goes to show once again that maybe it's better if we do just forfeit, so we don't have to like deal with the possibility of 4 goals. Just skip it.
Yeah, the forfeit's a 3-0 loss, so it's the same result either way. Although, at the same time, when you have 4 content creators predicting no goals, that's how you know that a goal is going to happen, right?
I guess.
No? Yeah.
I predicted a goal. It didn't happen.
I mean, I really thought that the game against Charlotte was going to be a Fire win, just because it seemed like that sort of thing that the team needed to win. But we found a chink in the plot armor.
Here's when the plot armor doesn't work for us.
And here I thought it was just the power of friendship.
Maybe the wins and goals were the friends we made along the way.
I mean, I'm just saying, if I can turn those friendships into satanial, I'll be happy.
What happens first? Are they going to find the One Piece, or is or the Fire going to score a goal?
Well, the One Piece is real. The One Piece. The One Piece is
real. Can't get much higher.
So high. All right. Before we make any more obscure references, do we have any departing words for our lovely jubbly listeners, our ladies and gentlemen and they thems of the fire?
All of you should order all of us some pizzas, some good pizzas.
I'd be down for pizza.
I tried getting pizza with people, but nobody wanted pizza.
Mate, you gave me an entire box of deep dish. So
That is true. That was
After
Hannah's
that
deep
Open
dish.
Cup
That
game.
is true.
Man, and I didn't
Yeah.
get it.
No,
You
I
know,
was running to the car. At that point, I was like, "Nope, I gotta get in this car."
yeah, you were wearing shorts, man. So
In fairness, I didn't even know I was going to the game until literally, like, I messaged my friend and said, "Hey, do you want to go to a fire game?" Okay. Poor Hannah wrapped up like a Russian nesting doll.
eh.
Well, I think that the thing that I want to leave everyone with is, what Albert Camus means when he says one must imagine Sisyphus happy. It's not that he has created his own meaning. It is that he has given up on finding meaning and simply existing. And that is what we need to embrace. The absurdism is embracing a lack of meaning. And the fire sure as hell lack meaning.
Yeah. It's funny that my two favorite teams right now just lack meaning, being the Fire and the White Sox. Also, my favorite team in Poland, the meme around them right now is that they find new ways to just lose. They lost like the biggest game in Poland 2-1 without scoring a single goal. Both of the goals for the opposing team were own goals. So
I have a
Yeah,
Jagiellonia
that's-
Białystok scarf, and I don't even know where they are. In
Jagiellonia, I'm pretty sure they're somewhere near the top of the
No.
Ekstraklasa table.
Oh, okay. I thought you were about to give me geography, and it's like,
No, I know what you meant.
By the way, I can't believe, Jiggly, that you revealed that Albert Camus was one of the transfer targets for the Fire this past offseason.
Oh, Jagiellonia is actually in first place.
well, he was a goalkeeper. He's a goalkeeper. So actually, like, it'd be pretty confusing if the Fire were trying to get Albert Camus for multiple reasons. He's a goalkeeper. He's actually pretty damn good.
In the midfield, though.
Yeah, no, you don't want him in the midfield.
I apologize. The reason why I actually showed up to our little recording session a bit late was because I was asleep, and then I just heard my phone go boop boop, and I check, and Tim's like, "Hey, are you joining?" I was like, podcast." Yeah, so here we are.
All right. Shall we call it?
Yes, because I'm pretty sure we are basically about an hour. So, ladies and germs and they thems of the Fire, thank you again. Through thick and thin, while we're up and when we're down, it's been a pleasure. From me, the Pull with Goal, Alan, Tim, DJ, our lovely jubbly special guest, Jiggly. And as always, come on, you men in red.